Hello and welcome to the 2022 Portico Prize Awards ceremony. I'm Simon Savidge and I have had the pleasure of judging the Portico Prize before, and you've got a treat in store with 6 amazing shortlisted books. I'm here in the Portico Library, which is an absolute stunner of a library. You can't get better. We'd love to hear your thoughts as the awards go on using the hashtag Portico Prize, and you can join in the chat here on YouTube in the comments down below. Tell us your thoughts as the evening unfolds and we get that final revelation. As I mentioned, I had the pleasure of judging the prize in 2020. It's one of those prizes that I adore because it best evokes the spirit of all things Northern. What that is, that's up to the judges each year, which also means that the prize is kind of different every year, which is exciting too. Now I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Tom Keep, who has the fantastic role and title of librarian of the Portico Library, and he's going to tell us about the history of the prize as well as this fantastically amazing building.
Hi, my name is Tom Keep and I'm the librarian at the Portico Library in Manchester.
The library has been open since 1806 and houses a collection of over 25,000 books and an archive spanning 450 years.
Everyone is welcome to come to the Portico Library and enjoy our wonderful public programme, which includes exhibitions, events, workshops and our educational programmes.
The Portico became a registered not-for-profit charity in 2017 and now plays a central role in Manchester's cultural life and literary heritage. The Portico Prize was established in 1985
in reaction to the London-centric nature of the publishing industry.
And we're very proud of the work that we've done to move the agenda and the conversation northwards, so that the voices and stories of those people that live or have worked in the north
are elevated and raised.
Local people from across the region play an integral role in the prize's decision making. This year we invited 21 individuals, all based in the north of England, to collectively choose a long list from the 127 submissions we received.
And they've done a fabulous job of putting together such a strong list.
Each year's long list panel become long-term members of our Society of Readers and Writers, who each receive a year's honorary membership to the Portico and work with us to produce our eclectic and imaginative public programmes.
Before the judges announce the winner of this year's award,
you'll be hearing from 6 of them who'll be reading extracts from our shortlisted books.
This year, the Portico Prize received Arts Council funding
for 3 additional projects. Tune in to our Rewriting the North podcast to hear 5 writers exploring different locations across the north, from Hadrian's Wall to the eroding cliffs of Withensea in East Yorkshire. We'll also be launching a new event series in spring 2022 and a mentorship scheme
which will be working with some of the top publishers in the UK to support Northern writers at the beginning of their careers. If these events or the prize sounds like something you'd like to get involved with, there are lots of ways in which you can support the prize, Northern Writing and the library. These include making a small donation via our website, becoming a volunteer, joining as a member, making a legacy,
adopting a book or supporting a project, just like the Portico Prize. Through your generosity, you'll be supporting not only the Portico Prize and Northern Writing, but this building, one of Manchester's oldest institutions.
This year's prize would not have been possible without the generous support of Jennifer and Stuart Palmer. Their love for the library has always shone through, and I'm immensely thankful for their donation.
Finally, the Portico Prize not only awards £10,000 to the winner, but an artwork made by a local artist. This year's award comes from artist Barry Anthony Finan from Venture Arts, a Manchester-based visual arts charity that supports learning disabled artists.
Made out of beautiful porcelain, it is called Scrolls and has tiny little letters all the way around it.
And thank you, Tom. Now we're going to head to one of our esteemed judges, Momtaza Mehri, who'll be talking about the 6 sensational shortlisted titles.
The books that have made this year's Portico Prize shortlist skillfully portray the joys, pains, ambiguity, and ambivalence of being tied to the tangled histories of a time and place. They are works of luminous prose, rewarding complexity and emotional resonance, at turns inviting and provoking, but always capturing the North in all its multiplicities, from the North of yesterday to the ever-shifting North of our present. A Bradford family sweeping saga, the transformative power of Manchester's musical history, a Liverpool which burns, wanes and inspires, the precarious worlds of young art school graduates in 1970s Leeds brought to life, an unusual love story with a distinctly Gothic northern voice, and, of course, love and loss amidst the North Sea's oil rigs. These are works of ambition, gnarly and fearless, demanding our attention and investment. It's an honour to share them with you.
Gnarly, a good word for any kind of book list, frankly. First up, we're going to have an extract from Ghosted by Jen Ashworth, the tale of a woman whose husband goes missing, yet she doesn't report it to the police. Why? You'll have to read the book to find out. Here's Jo Flynn with an extract.
I didn't tell the police about my dream. They deal only in facts, and a dream is not a fact. I didn't tell them I was in a bad mood. A feeling is not a fact. Instead, the woman tapped the details I reported to them into her tablet, while the man searched the flat, unscrewed the bath panel, and looked inside the suitcases we stored under the bed. Would you believe? Sinister, though I didn't put it together until after they'd left. They were looking for his body in case I was reporting him missing to cover up the fact that I'd actually murdered him. Is there anywhere you can suggest that he might have gone? A friend? A family member? I promised them I didn't know anything that would help them. I emphasised again, his mood was unremarkable. Our interaction was commonplace, one morning in an entire series of them. I told them, truthfully, that his mother lived in Portugal and his passport was still in the kitchen drawer. The police didn't ask about the history of our relationship. It wasn't like it is in the crime dramas, where the accused gets a good opportunity either in a police interview room or in the dock to explain. And it wasn't as if I tried to tell them. It's only now that I'm able to understand some of the strangeness that had been hidden inside our lives for a long time before he vanished.
Now we're going to have an extract of James Corbett's The Outsiders, which starts in the 1980s riots of Liverpool and then travels around the world. Here's Yvonne Battle-Felton to read from it.
Paul sometimes wondered if Sarah was a girl lost or a story gained. So many memories of Liverpool were wrapped up with those of her, and returning to the place of his birth brought them back. The ferry trips and excursions around the magnificence of the city's art galleries, the late-night gigs and walks through the scattered ruins of Toxteth, running from the bombed-out church as an apoplectic drug addict chased them away. 30 years after the Toxteth riots had brought the world's focus upon its decline, Liverpool was a city beyond recognition. The skyline was filled with giant cranes hauling into place the bricks and masonry of Liverpool's urban renewal. There was a swagger about the place, not the devil-may-care cocksureness he had grown up with, but a confidence that something very special was growing from the ruins of its past. The year 2008 brought it the European capital of culture, and artists, musicians, actors, curators, and hundreds and thousands of tourists descended upon the city. The party never really stopped. 6 years on, Liverpool was still the city everybody talked about.
And now to a reading from one of the longlist judges of 2020, which was the year that I got to have the fine pickings of their decisions, is the wonderful Kezra Shiraz. And she's going to be reading from The Family Tree by Sairish Hussain, which is a kind of saga centred all around one particular family in Bradford and the trials and tribulations that they endure.
The theatre appeared out of place. It didn't look as if it belonged there. It was too flamboyant, too flashy for such a simple town. Derelict factories and abandoned warehouses eyed the building enviously from afar. Whenever Amjad drove past a theatre, he felt ashamed because in his 35 years of life, he'd never actually been inside, nor had any of his neighbours or his colleagues. People like him didn't go to the theatre. He assumed posh folk from nearby towns like Leeds, York and Harrogate were the most frequent visitors, people who regularly spent evenings at the theatre. Sahil had once been with a school trip to see the pantomime. He'd been nagging Amjad ever since to take him again. Amjad insisted he would, if and when he had the time. Reminders of the glorious past were evident everywhere. The city housed an old factory which was once the largest silk and velvet manufacturer in the world. Amjad read about it in the newspaper when it had recently closed down. It surprised him that a mill town in Yorkshire could have such a significance. It made him appreciate the forlorn-looking building more. The only impact it made now was its imposing, smokeless chimney that could be seen from almost every spot in the city. Even now, it was an impressive structure built in the Italianate style, the newspaper informed him. Amjad was parked opposite the mill now, waiting for Sahil and his son to come out from another blackened Gothic building, their primary school. It looked like it may have been a church in the olden days. Now, though, it sat in a parade of shops, including a halal butcher, a travel agent offering Hajj and Umrah packages, and plenty of windows displaying mannequins wearing glittery shalwar kameez.
And now we're going to hand over to the wonderful Sarah Hill, who keeps this prize going. She keeps the authors informed, the judges in check, and she caught up with the 2020 winner, my winner, Jessica Andrews, and talked about Saltwater and what's happened to her since she won.
Jessica, I can't believe it's been 2 years since your debut novel Saltwater won the Portico Prize. Could you talk a little bit about what winning in 2020 meant to you and how the last couple of years have been?
They've been a strange couple of years, as I'm sure they've been for everyone with the pandemic. For me, winning the Portico Prize was so validating in my identity as a writer, and particularly a Northern writer. And I've mostly been working on my second book, really, for the past 2 years. And it really kind of spurred me on to do that.
That's great to hear. What would you say to this year's winner?
I would say congratulations. And I would say, I hope that you find it kind of as validating and as exciting as I did. And I hope that you feel that there's a strong community of writers and readers, particularly in the North, supporting you. And also having financial support as a writer is really valuable. So I hope that that helps you to write more books.
And speaking of writing new books, your second novel, Milk Teeth, is coming out in July 2022. And I remember the Portico Prize judges in 2020 praised Saltwater for its exploration of Northern identity as a place within us. Is this a theme that you'll be carrying through into your new book?
Yes, it is. So I think my work will always sort of be in the grey space between fiction, memory, and truth. And my new book is kind of about wanting and desire and denial and the body. But the protagonist is also Northern. And yeah, similarly, she moves away from the North in search of a different kind of life, but kind of finds the North as very much a part of her psychology and her mind. And because that is something that has been a recurring theme in my own life, I think I'll always be interested in exploring that.
We look forward to reading. Thanks so much for catching up.
Hope it all goes well. I'm excited to see who's going to win.
And a huge thanks to Sarah and Jessica for that chat. I'm really looking forward to reading Jessica's next novel, Milk Teeth, this summer. Now, on to the next of our 6 sensational shortlisted books. We have Sea State, it's all the S's with Simon Savidge as well, by Tabitha Lasley. And you wouldn't think necessarily oil rigs are going to make for an exciting book, but hopefully as you'll hear from this extract, that's not the case. Here is Ella Otomewo reading from Sea State.
Where's home? I was looking at his mouth as I said this. His lips were pink against his pallor. His eyes were blue and very clear, as if he'd never entertained a sin. Stockton, he said. He told me some things about his hometown, a place where husbands had to be captured and corralled like Camargue horses, and struggled in their bridals even after marriage, where all the men worked offshore, and nights were enlivened by scheduled violence and bouts of wifely thuggery. Towns were quicker to progress the closer they were to a city's civilizing sphere. Stockton-on-Tees was near nothing, an empty, unsupervised hinterland. I've got a theory about women on your side of the country, I said. They're rough. I remember going to see my friend in Nottingham. There were women fighting with their fellas on the street and winning. This theory was based on nothing much, apart from a few scraps of anecdotal evidence, but he nodded as if it were established fact. My cousin's pretty hard. She goes out and fights, when she has to. She's the only woman I'm physically scared of. Slammed us into a door when I was 15. I've still got the scar. Where? Just there. There was a jagged indentation at his hairline. I reached up and traced it with my fingers. He jumped, as at a small electric shock. His hair stood away from his forehead in an airborne crest. I ran a hand over it, smoothing it down against his brow. There was a slight curl to it, a hint of resistance in its texture. I continued smoothing long after it lay flat, transfixed by the motion, the proximity of his skin. He sat there, letting me do it. A pulse fluttered at his temple. I touched it, and it quickened. You have messy hair, I said eventually. You should invest in a comb.
And now to the penultimate of our 6 shortlisted books. We have an extract coming from Toto Among the Murderers by Sally J. Morgan, a tale set in 1970s Leeds around a recent part of dark British history. Over to Kamal Khan for a reading.
I feel a deep sense of foreboding as the night darkened into patterns of stars through the skylight. Half awake, half asleep, I have the sensation of falling through the concrete floor into a crimson place, swimming with eels and the scent of geraniums. I'm plummeting, like Alice. I twist and I wake up with a jolt. Lenny is huddled under his jacket on the mattress next to me. His breathing is soft and rhythmic as he sleeps, but Morkin is bolt upright in a broken-backed wooden chair. He rubs his growing beard as though testing its unfamiliarity. Awake now and uncomfortable, I have this feeling, deep in my guts, a nagging disquiet that I don't understand. What's that sound, Mork? I whisper, as he shifts his position a little as he listens. It's like a frog or a cricket, whirring like a ratchet, churring continuously in the darkness. It's a nightjar. Have you ever seen one? No. Is it like an owl? A bit, but really ugly. They're brown and they've got huge wide mouths that look like big fat swifts. They lie flat on the ground in the day like an old duster and only fly at night. They used to be on my granddad's farm. I saw one once, looking at me from a pile of leaves like a frickin' ugly toad bird. What do they eat? Moths and that. My granddad used to call it a moth owl. He said they drank milk from the goats too. I'd like to see a moth owl that drinks goat's milk. Morkin laughs, and the moonlight glints off his teeth through the skylight. They don't drink goat's milk. That's all rubbish that my granddad heard when he was a kid. Lenny has woken up to the sound of our voices. Who drinks goat's milk? That sounds freaking disgusting. No one does. Morkin gets up and rubs the dust off his trousers. Thank Christ you're finally awake. Let's get this carnate before they get up.
And now to the final of the 6 shortlisted books. I hope you've had a sip of something every time I've said 6 shortlisted. We're going to have an extract from Mayflies by Andrew O'Hagan, which is a tale of the repercussion of a friendship from 30 years ago. And here to read it is Mike Murphy.
He was wearing his "We Are All Prostitutes" t-shirt and playing dominoes with a guy called Stedman McCauley. Now the other men in the bar were heroic to Tully and me. They were sacked workers mainly, guys who were struggling in a town that had just been designated an unemployment black spot. But Tully had unearthed an irony. They were victims, these veterans of the fight against Thatcher, but he was the first person I knew, and perhaps the only one, who saw that they could also be victimisers. Tully understood that difficult things did not cancel out other difficult things. He had a taste for ambivalence and had never met anybody before who possessed that so naturally. Steady McCauley was a Jamaican barber who had lived in Britain since 1959, when he'd arrived aged 20. He was a big man to us. He knew about reggae. And he'd come to Southampton on the SS Begonia from Kingston, passing through, still remember him telling us, Cartagena, then Puerto Cabello, and Port of Spain. He described the black funnel of the passenger ship. He told us about a spicy horse stew they ate when the boat left the port of Vigo, the shebeen below decks, and his family's journey via Lambeth, in London, where his cousin lived, to Glasgow and the setting up of a barber shop on West Nile Street. Was it always like this? Tully asked. Full of racists? They don't know what it is they're doing, Steady said. They're children. They're pickney. Children are rough. Tully almost pestered him for more information. When they first come to Scotland, Steady's father got a job working for the corporation buses, but the union complained. You hear that? Tully said to the guys at the bar. The Transport and General Workers Union said they would all go on strike if men from Barbados and Jamaica were given jobs on the buses. One man turned and shook his head. It was the kind of complexity you never heard about round our way until Tully spoke about it. Steady drank a half pint of beer and a rum and coke every night in the glebe, and none of these men, so far as I saw, ever spoke to him. They never included him or turned in his direction, but Tully made a point of going right over to him, offering him a drink, ask if the seat beside him was free. I'm sure Steady didn't want the company most of the time, but Tully needed those in the bar, those stalwarts, to know that they could cause pain too, and that we all have our wrongdoing to contend with.
And now the moment that we have all been waiting for. I'm very excited to find out who is going to be the winner of the 2022 Portico Prize. Do keep using the hashtag Portico Prize to let us know your thoughts on the shortlist and indeed the winner. I'm now going to hand over to 2 of the esteemed judges, and I know what they've been through. It's brilliant but really challenging. And they are Melanie Sykes and Chair of the Judges, Gary Younge.
So it's been an amazing experience to be a judge for the Portico Prize. It's actually a real honour to be asked. I'm from a little village called Mosley on the edge of the Pennines in Greater Manchester, and although I left when I was 19 years old, I am a northerner. My roots are northern, my spirit is northern, and so is my heart. So yeah, it was amazing to be asked. It was tough because there were so many incredible books, so varied, such beautiful writing, such thought-provoking work, and very, very difficult to make those decisions, but it had to be done. I have been a massive reader since, I think I've had a book on the go since I was like 7. But I've never had to read so many in such a short space of time, and there goes the challenge. Reading under a little bit of pressure, phew. But it was fun, and it was great to work with the judges and to talk through the books. I found them so interesting, and it's so great to share thoughts about what we considered to be the spirit of the North as well, and that's deeply interesting. But we did do it. We did get it down to the final one, to the winner, well-deserved winner. There wasn't too much fisticuffs about it. We did pretty well, and so did the winning writer. So thank you so much for asking me, and congratulations to all the finalists. Those books are all brilliant, and everybody should definitely dive in and lose themselves in those northern experiences. Good luck, everybody.
Hello, I'm Gary Younge, Professor of Sociology at the University of Manchester. It's really a testament to the breadth, depth and quality of the long list that we were presented with that from the outset, all of the judges, myself, Anita Singh, Melanie Sykes and Momtaza Mehri, each started out with different favourites. The range of fiction, non-fiction, personal testimony and action-packed narratives gave us a wealth of talent and styles to choose from. In our deliberations, though, we kept circling back to the founding principle of the prize itself, to favour those books that best evoke the spirit of the north of England. Or should I say spirits? Because the shortlist that we emerged with illustrated the degree to which there is not one north, but many, rooted not just in place, but time, gender, race, religion and narrative voice. Throughout ran a strong sense of unromantic nostalgia for a north that no longer exists and yet remains with us so long as the stories are told. Geographically and temporally, the stories we chose took us from 80s Manchester to a Yorkshire of both the 70s and today, a northeastern male diaspora that found work on the North Sea oil rigs, to a panoramic sweep through the last 4 decades of Liverpool, and finally a fictional town in the northwest. Finding a winner among that selection wasn't easy, but it was our job to be judgy, and we took it seriously. Ultimately, while all were serious contenders, we were in broad agreement about the winner. Sally J. Morgan's Toto Among the Murderers creates a world where well-crafted characters, most of whom are just out of college, collide and conspire in a bohemian setting with a spirit of camaraderie, enmity, romance and confusion. Shuttling mostly between Leeds and Sheffield, the book vividly evokes a period in recent history with themes that carry clear, if painful, echoes to today. A time when women in the North in particular lived in mortal fear of sexual violence made explicit by a daily barrage of headlines about mass murderers targeting vulnerable women. But what comes through is also the determination of Toto, the main character, to refuse to allow the fears to define her as she lives a life of reckless abandon and adventure, longing and love. Congratulations to Toto Among the Murderers.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I thought it was an honour simply to be on this shortlist with these amazing writers, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody on this shortlist should be the winner. So I can't quite believe what's going on. I can't believe that this is me. But thank you to the judges for recognising Toto and the story that I tried to tell. I grew up part of my childhood in Yorkshire, and have Yorkshire and the North, where I spent a lot of my adult life working, has a big place in my heart. I love to write about place, And I wanted to write about a place and a time and stories that I felt were being neglected and in danger of being lost. So to have the story recognised in this way by the Portico Prize is enormously affirming, and it brings me great delight and joy. Obviously, there are people that I have to thank through this. First of all, I want to thank my family, my superb storytelling family, who made me the storyteller that I am. I want to thank my agent, Jonathan Ruppin, who helped me through some of the toughest times and the moments where I had least faith in myself in making this, in writing this book. I want to thank everyone at John Murray Originals, and in particular, of course, the incredibly talented Becky Walsh, who really is an extraordinary and insightful editor. And last but not least, my beautiful wife, Jess Richards, who has been my support and mentor all the way through and is my true north. So thank you, everybody. I am so grateful. Thank you.
And a huge congratulations to Sally J. Morgan. I'll be reading Toto Among the Murderers very, very soon. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Do keep shouting about this fantastic prize using the hashtag Portico Prize, and we will see you in 2 years' time. Thanks a lot. Bye.